To really do this and have a big production budget, we'll play 2001 Space Odyssey for this part, you know, where the monolith comes out and dun, 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 bum, bum, bum. All right, so who wants to get pregnant? You'll be pregnant? Okay, go on. I know. All right, so you can just put that under there. It's a big baby.
Good thing I have an extra shirt here.
She's going to carry it low.
Wow. That's a boy.
Okay, all right. So you ready there, Cody? We're sounding okay? Okay, all right, here we go. All right.
I forgot about that part.
That's right. So you could be world famous now. Yeah. Okay. So here she is, right? Pregnant, and she's a gazelle, right? And in this whole group of gazelles just running along, and she's happily pregnant, right? And over there on the left side of the herd is her favorite brother gazelle. And they're just all going along, right? And so happy, right? And then all of a sudden, the lions come on the left side of the herd, and they get her brother. And in that moment, as she's going along, she has a choice to maybe turn around and see if she can do something, or does she save the baby and go with the herd and let the lions have her brother. So she goes along, her brother is killed, and then his name was Philip. It was Philip the gazelle. And so now she delivers a beautiful baby girl gazelle. And I know it'll be and in honor of her brother, she names this gazelle Phyllis, after Philip, her brother. Okay, now who wants to come up and be 16-year-old Phyllis Gazelle looking for a boyfriend? Who wants to be that person? Huh? We need, yeah, all right. I'll say, now here is Phyllis the Gazelle. She's now a teenager, going along, happily bouncing, right? And then over there to the left, who wants to be the handsome person of her interest, the gazelle of her interest? You know, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, Dennis, and he's just okay. All right. So there he is, and there's just yes, and you're loping along, and you out of the corner of your eye, you spot this handsome gazelle. There's something about his horns. Just can't resist him, right? But as you think about going over there to maybe get a little closer to him, the memory that came into you in the womb of Philip being killed when he was on the left side of the herd subconsciously starts to activate, and you find you can't go over there. And you really like him. You really would like to be over there, but you can't go. You talk to your mother. She says the left side of the herd is dangerous. You don't understand why, but you can feel it too. There's something risky about going over there, right? Does everybody kind of get where we're going with this? Yeah. How this programming is set up? Yeah. Okay. So that's that little sheet with the baby there. And so as I was talking with AJ over the break, he reminds me, we never do this work with happy people. If you're happy, don't do this. Don't look at all this stuff, you know. It's for people who have trouble. Leave happy alone, right? Let people be happy. We need it. We need happiness in the world, so be happy. Like if you're having a great day, don't sit down and work on this. just have a great day and enjoy yourself.
That brings to the question, how much of this do you analyze? You spend every day, all day, trying to analyze what just happened to you, why it happened.
Yes, yes. So, AJ was just asking about how much of this stuff do you analyze, and I'm taking that as a rhetorical question. I'm not going to feel defensive about how much I've personally over-analyzed everything in my life, you know. So I'm going to, yeah. But you're right. You could spend your life doing that. And so for our particular thing, one of the solutions for that would be to get the mother and the daughter Gazelle to talk about the feelings they had for the brother who was killed. That would be one path that I know, and that would be a path that we would call recall healing. Another path would be to set up something to where his fate could be honored. We could honor Philip's fate and ask for his blessing when we're free to live our lives, and not try to repair his fate or change his fate. That whole thing about not going on the left side of the herd is trying to save his life, and he's already dead. But it's a program that's creating misery. That's the only reason we would intervene. We wouldn't want to analyze anything. If this young gazelle Phyllis is happy, we just let her be happy. But if that program got coded in and she can't be with the handsome horned gazelle that she wants to be with, then, you know, if she comes to us for help, we'll do something with that, right? So looking at that little thing, do you know personally what was your parents' greatest suffering during the pregnancy with you and the first year of your life? If you know that, you know an awful lot about your life and why you see things the way you do. So, when my uncle was a year or so away from dying, he was the last one in my mom's family. He said this thing to me. I thought I was the apple of my mother's eye, you know, of course. And he says to me at the big gathering at his 90th birthday, you know, my sister Evelyn, that's my mom. He says, you know, she was the top girl in her class in college, and she really wanted to get her degree. And she got pregnant with you, and I think she was satisfied with her life. And oh, man. You know, how do you cover that stuff? You know, you're at a social gathering, you know, somebody says something like that, you know, you want to send your face to another room and let it do what it needs to do before it comes back out. And, you know, it's like, oh, that hurt. And so I called my brother and told him about it, and he just immediately, he said, well, that's why my degree has never felt like mine. He said, I got this degree for Mom. And what he and I both did was we married and had children and then got our degrees. It was like we were living an expression of an answer for our mother, that you can do both. You can have a family and a degree, right? Which was a terrible idea. It was a terrible idea. Now, my kids, you know, they have no interest in getting any kind of degree, you know, because they know what it's like to be the children of poor students, you know. But we unconsciously did it that way to answer our mother, to try to solve her suffering without having any awareness that that's what we were doing. But that's what was programmed in, right? So that's what we're looking at. And if a person will take the time to do this for themselves and especially for their children, if you're a mother, it's huge if you can tell them what your biggest suffering was, especially at the birth. So let me tell you some quickies here. Conception. Conception is going to be about my program's little voice whenever meaning and purpose come up. So like when a little kid is asked, what are you going to be when you grow up? the brain will automatically replay the circumstances around that person's conception. What were the parents' subconscious plans for that child? Not their conscious ones. That's only 10% of it. You saw the iceberg. The big thing is, what do the parents subconsciously want for this child? Were they trying to get pregnant? Was it a party? Was it a contraceptive failure? You know, all of these things will, the child, whenever meaning and purpose comes up, what is your meaning? What is your purpose? So a woman brings her daughter in. She wants her daughter to go to college. And the daughter and her, normally they get along. The daughter is not going to college. Not doing it, right? And she's the granddaughter of the woman with the breast cancer that we worked with. So she brought her in to see me. And so we're in there and we're pretending it's a vitamin deficiency. And we're giving her an IV. So, you know, so we're laying there on this table giving her an IV. And I said, so, tell me about what's going on in your life. Mom wants me to go to college and I'm not going. You know, I said, wow. What do you want to do? I want to go to the tropics. I want to go someplace tropical. I'm thinking Mexico. I said, so you want to go back to where you were conceived? She said, no, I was conceived in Michigan. I said, no, you weren't. You were conceived in Mexico. And then I realized I didn't have permission to say that. And it was like, ooh, maybe that wasn't quite right. So I went in and said to the mother what happened, and then she took it really well. Came out, and we all had a big laugh about it. But the story went like this: the mother and her boyfriend had been together all through high school. They knew they were not a good match for each other, but they said, one more vacation before we break up. Right? And that's when she's conceived. And she never heard the story. So when it comes to meaning and purpose, like going to college, what's my meaning and purpose? Her brain automatically replays conception. She wants to go back to the place where she was conceived. So now the fascinating thing, and once we went through that, she went to college. She was fine, you know. Once she heard the story, the whole program shifted. So she was fine with going to college. This is the part that's a bit eerie for me. She goes to this college, and as soon as she enrolls, a tropical storm comes in, and the college is shut down for 2 weeks for a tropical storm, which was the length of their vacation in Mexico. The tropical storm of the conception, the tropical storm at the college. I don't know. You make out of that what you want. That one gives me goosebumps, or as I learned, the official name is horripilations. So if you'd like the medical term for goosebumps. So conception, on the conception end, that's where a person's going to get their sense of meaning and purpose. So if you have a child, a grandchild that doesn't seem to have a sense of meaning and purpose, tell them about their conception. Birth. Birth is a big moment here. So birth is where we show up on stage. This is it. This is our big moment. Overture, turn the lights. This is it, the height of heights. Okay, so here we show up at birth. The circumstances and how mom felt about the circumstances is a big deal, right? So I have a whole book of things that were called childhood learning disabilities that completely reversed when the child was told the story of their birth. So see if you can get that. So let me ask you this so we can have some audience participation here. And you don't have to say it out loud. You can think about it. AJ, you're too happy. Don't even. You're here to pray for everybody else.
I don't know it
And
yet.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right, so when y'all first get up in the morning and go look in the mirror, what do you look at? A hush fell over the crowd. Charity tries to avoid the mirror. Mm-hmm.
Straighten my hair.
AJ straightens his hair. You look in. You look at your eyes. What do you see about your eyes? What do you? Okay. Yeah. Does anybody wake up in the morning and their first time looking in the mirror go, "Welcome to this world"? It's very rare with people who are born in hospitals. So the programmed brain is loyal to the first look, the first word, and the first touch that we receive after birth. And will be loyal to that until death, unless it's reprogrammed. So in a hospital birth, there is no welcome to this world. There's a medical evaluation of the body. That's our first look. Most people, when they get up, they're either dreading that or getting ready to do it. And they start looking at their parts and judging how they look, like a doctor would look at the baby. Give myself my APGAR score of the morning, you know. Now that's good. That's sort of the unaffirmation. You know, we could have a little APGAR thing on the mirror, you know. My daily APGAR, you know. That's funny. The APGAR score is, you know, what you give to babies, you know, like how if they're blue or pink or how well they're breathing and their reflexes and all that. So it's a medical evaluation. So practice waking up, looking in the mirror in the morning, saying, "Welcome to this world." And if you feel something coming up that says, "This doesn't make any sense," or whatever, imagine yourself back in the delivery room with your mom and the doctor and tell them, "Thank you for giving me birth. I so appreciate the gift of life. And I leave all your feelings and judgments about me and my birth with you. Please look friendly on me when I have my own assessment of myself and my world." Yeah. Oh, sure. And change the words to what feels right to you. The first part is gratitude. Gratitude for the gift of life, however you would say that. Because without those folks, who knows? And we want to express that in a way that feels authentic for us. And then we tell them that whatever your judgments and feelings were at the time of my birth, I now leave those with you. And you can say, "I leave those with you with respect." Yes. Yes. Yeah. And then ask them to look friendly on you. Please look friendly on me when I see myself in a welcoming way.
You know what, Rich? I was raised by my stepmother when they were too long. And to me, she was my mother. And she treated me as her favorite son. And I have those same feelings that you just explained, even though she didn't birth me.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't know.
There's something, yeah, it's such a huge stress point in the programming period that we take all this on so that our biologic mothers, the ones giving us birth, so that they don't suffer. So whatever the mother feels that is about suffering, the nervous system of the child will actually change the way it connects throughout the body and in the brain so that it can be a living answer for mom so she doesn't have to suffer. It's like when I look at myself in the mirror and evaluate myself, I'm saying, "See, Mom, it's okay to have a hospital birth. I'm okay. You don't have to feel guilty about it that I'm carrying this." It's like I'm carrying this for her. And of course it doesn't work, it doesn't help. And so that's why we do these kinds of sentences, because the heart of every one of our ancestors, the heart of my biologic mother, even if she threw me away after birth, the heart of a parent and a grandparent is to bless their descendants. The personality, not so much. Some people's personalities are so wounded, they cannot give and receive love. They just can't do it. But the heart of that person, if we were to put them on this heart monitor, you'd see that their heart wants the best for their children and grandchildren. I've never seen an exception to that. And so how the energy basically moves, it looks to me like, okay, if we imagine the source of all life back here, coming through the ancestors, through my parents to me, and to my children, nieces and nephews, and grandchildren. That's the flow of it. To be in that flow, what I do is I turn around and honor those who came before, and then I can turn and bless those who come after. So when I can make that movement, there's this flow of love that seems to be so full of light that what we call illness is simply transformed into something else that we might call good health. So my story was that my little Southern Baptist 21-year-old mother got a pain shot during labor and delivery, and I was born okay. They clipped the cord like they do and set me aside and started working on Mom. And the pain medicine, though, was in my system. And I either died or nearly died, had to be resuscitated a couple of times. So my parents' biggest suffering during that whole period was watching them resuscitate me, going, we maybe should stop because of the brain damage. You know, and I'm their first child, and they are just losing it. So who has to carry that stress? I do. It'll go right into my body. Now, I don't know I'm me yet. It's not personal. It's all very innocent. Nobody even knows it's going on. But my nervous system will take that on, and I will live my life expressing an answer for that suffering. And part of that was becoming an anesthesiologist. I always, as an anesthesiologist, I resuscitate people. I give pain medicine and take people to the edge of death and bring them back. It's like saying, see, Mom, it's okay to use pain medicine. If you need to use pain medicine, use it, right? Because I'm repeating this over and over so you don't have to feel guilty anymore about your choice to take a pain shot. And that was part of it. The other part that I found out later is that my great-grandfather was one of those guys that sold medicines and goods back in 1905. And I found this out like a year or two ago. They sent a picture, and I kind of look like him. It was like, and I'd never seen him before, you know. And he wrote this glowing report of how wonderful life was since, you know, he started selling medicines and goods, and how friendly the company was, and they'd sent all this stuff, and the medicines and goods were so great that people would actually come to his house and get them. He didn't have to get the mule and the wagon and go out there. They would actually show up. And now, I don't know what he was selling, but I mean, he was a farmer, kind of mechanic kind of guy. But I Googled, you know, medicines sold in 1905. I wish I could do the pictures. The pictures are so good. My favorite was called Lady Out of the Dark. If I may model that for you. Lady Out of the Dark. I mean, you know, and she was this gorgeous blonde, and the back half of her body is still in the shadow, and the front half has come out into the light. Lady Out of the Dark. You know, and don't you just want that? I mean, right? If you were feeling sad, wouldn't you just want that, right? It was methamphetamine. You know? Methamphetamine. The other one I thought was really sweet was sitting on the front porch, like we do in the South, and just sitting there rocking the babies, and we were putting in some of Mrs. Winslow's syrup in their mouth, when they have colic, when they have things like that, and it was morphine. And it really helped the babies relax, and their cough went away, and their diarrhea, and, Yeah. And so when I came into this, when I went into med school, one of the things that was hard for me is, and I put words to it later, but when I came into it, I felt like I owed a life already. I felt like that if I made a mistake and somebody died, I would have to commit suicide. I really felt that. And so I was always worried that, that I was going to make a mistake. And something happened, I think, with his business, because he was dead less than 2 years later at age 58. And there's no stories about him. And so I don't know if he became addicted or if one of the babies didn't wake up after taking that kind of cough syrup. The other thing is that the non-addictive medicines that they were selling back then were filled with lead, arsenic, and mercury. So my very first foray into alternative medicine was when chiropractor Jim Fonder, we went to the same church, he said, my in-laws just lost their chelation doctor in Austin. Some government people or some people in suits went out and had a talk with him, and he went back to Russia the next day. Probably a coincidence. He was, so he said, would you go learn chelation and help them out? I was an anesthesiologist then, but I went with him. He was paying for it. And I went to learn about chelation, which removes lead, arsenic, and mercury. So I am a living answer for the addictive medicines, because I carry antidotes as an anesthesiologist. And I'm a living answer for the ones that are poisoned with heavy metals, because I do chelation. And I had no context for why all that happened until I saw my inheritance. It all falls into place. Is everybody good with all that?
We knew him, and he did go back to Russia. We went to him.
Yes, we have a testimony about it. Yes. Yes.
I was conceived.
He really was great, though. I mean, and he was way ahead of his time.
Dr. Rezoff was way ahead of his time, and I had a lawyer friend from Kerrville who was there the day the people in the suits came, and he described it to me. They went into a back room, and the next day he was physically out of the country and left all of his stuff. So apparently they had a little discussion.
Might have included his wife.
So, I started doing chelations and saw that a lot of people benefited from it, and I got to see some of the things that are the kind of the darker side of standard of care. I'm thinking of my friend Edith, who came from a nursing home, and I don't know about these things. We didn't learn about this in medical school. I'm scared every time I'm doing one, and so she comes in and she's already had one leg amputated. This one has bad circulation from diabetes or something, and so she wanted to try the chelation. I said, okay. So we did the chelation, and sure enough, after 2 or 3 chelations, she has pulses in her feet again. I thought, dear Lord, that's just what they said at the conference. I mean, if this stuff actually works, why aren't we doing this? And so then, when her veins got tough to get, I said to her, Edith, I said, hyperbaric oxygen is supposed to do the same thing. Why don't you try that? She said, well, I had 50 of those. I said, you had 50 hyperbaric treatments and it didn't open this leg? She said, no. She said, you can't get Medicare to pay for hyperbaric to get your circulation to work again. I got it after the leg was amputated to help me heal from the surgery. That was a shocker for me, that most of the hyperbaric chambers in hospitals sit empty all day long. And she was not allowed to get something that would save her leg, but something that would help her heal after it was removed. A learning thing, another learning thing. And you know these, I mean, this is all just walking a path, and we can get back on topic if you like. I got a call one day from a lady who was in hospice with cancer, and she wanted to do some hydrogen peroxide IVs. And I still had hospital privileges and things like that. And so the nurse got on the line with me, and she said, Dr. Massey, what about these peroxide IVs? I said, well, you know, she wants to have some. Let's just, you know, see what happens. She said, in order to do these with her on hospice, you have to medically guarantee me that this will not create a recovery for her, because she has signed a contract to die within a certain period of time. No. And you know, it was like, wow, well, I don't know that I can guarantee that. So we never did those. Little things along the way, little learning things along the way. Okay, so everybody's got it, that the big thing is to discover what was your parents' greatest suffering during the pregnancy with you in the first year of life. And if they remember when it is, then you have another big clue. So if the big thing happens at 5 months during the pregnancy or during the infancy, my brain will repeat that every 5 years. It will just come back in a cycle like that until it's reconciled. So anytime you can help somebody do that. And of course, in the office here, if you just have the book and the M-Wave and let people play with it, it can be pretty big for people to see where their heart goes.
A lot of times I've noticed on myself, like you don't think if you're just looking at it, but then when you get that little twinge, and then you let it go.
Yes.
You don't have to do anything else many times.
Yes, a lot of times just the awareness, and it changes. Yeah, I agree. So that's really important to know. If you have an M-Wave in a book, a lot of times it's just the awareness.
So what is the book? Is it just statements?
Yeah, the book will be just statements. And let me get my messy little paper thing, and let me just show you what's on here. These are from a long time ago. I dug this out of the closet. This is put the ice on your head thing, right? Sometimes after we do something, in order to heal, inflammation is required, so the brain will swell.
Well, I
right?
read
So
on
put ice on your head.
the right ear.
If it's a heart attack, you put ice above the right ear and then call 911. That's the part of the brain that controls the rhythm center of the heart. So during a heart attack, if you keep the rhythm center more stable with some ice, you have a much better chance of recovery. Okay, because it's usually arrhythmias that get people. Okay, whoops. We talked about this. We talked about this next one. In medicine, doubt any nouns that you hear. You know, they're kind of made up, right? In human history, the nouns always come from the conquering people. So when one group conquers another people, they change all the nouns. So, you know, don't let yourself be conquered by nouns. And verb everything, you know, instead of saying, I have arthritis, ask, why is my brain inflaming my joints? Turn it into a verb, an action, because action is always changing. Nouns don't change. Don't get stuck with a noun. Yes. And so if I'm claiming something, so I'll tell you one real quick here. Another good Catholic story. A woman who at certain times gets arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, in her fingers, so that she cannot sign forms, and that's her job, is signing forms for the family. She works in the family business. Where this came from is the child before her, there was a crisis. And one of them, it looked like they were going to have to make a choice, either to save the mother or save the baby. This woman was not Catholic, but her husband was. And under this duress, she signed a form saying, "Take my life and let the baby live." So that's the pregnancy before this woman. The arthritis, can you see how it's an answer? Whenever she gets this, she cannot sign forms. The suffering of her mother was signing that form because to her it felt like she had no more value in the family. Joints are always about value, how I'm valued in the family, right? So if I think I have, okay, the other thing I'll throw in here is see if you can get this part, because you already know it. We all already know everything. It's already real simple, like my friend AJ says. Joints only hurt when they're healing. See if you can get that. They only hurt when they're healing. The disease part, like when I'm feeling devalued, like something about that day is an anniversary of that woman's mother signing that form, her brain will take the minerals out of those joints and send them somewhere that's valued. Send those minerals, take them out of the cartilage, and just send it to her brain or her eyeball or someplace that the body values. There's absolutely no feeling to that. When the brain is destroying the joint, it's absolutely painless. The person doesn't even know it's happening. Okay? But when that person takes in a compliment or that conflict is over and their sense of value about this hand goes back up, the brain will find those minerals and start putting them back in the joint. That's the part that hurts. Healing is the part that does rubor, calor, dolor, tumor. It's the healing that hurts. Now here's what happens. If we could give ourselves a lobotomy at that point, when all this inflammation and pain is happening so that we could not draw any conclusions about what it meant, it would get inflamed one time and then we'd be finished. The brain would repair the joints and we're done. But if I look at my hand and say, "You're giving me trouble again," we're now devaluing our hand. What is arthritis about? It's about being devalued. I've lost my value. So my own language insults my hand again, and we've got to go through the whole cycle over and over and over. Every time I complain about it and say, "You're not what you were when you were 20, right? I mean, it just keeps the cycle going, right? So the brain is healing. Whenever the joints are swelling and hurting, that's healing. So do what you need to for the pain and say thank you. Thank you to the brain. Thank you for healing me. I don't like the way it feels. I'm going to do something about it, but I appreciate that you're healing me. I appreciate that we're putting minerals back in the joint, right? People get better on the weekend of the Recall Healing Arthritis seminars. By the end of the weekend, most of them are well from their arthritis because the self-talk has changed. So just get that. Isn't that crazy that it's like that? Oh, that's just the same picture you have there. More artistically on your form, the iceberg. Oh, let's see what. Oh, that's my thing that I wrote. Yeah. Okay. How many of you like to do public speaking? Anybody? I don't see any hands going up. No, nobody feels like they like to get up in front of a group and go, "I'm here. I got stuff to share." No. Okay. So. You do it, but you don't like it? So whenever we get around a place where we're going to do public speaking, our brain replays our mother's feelings at our birth. It automatically happens because we're showing up in the world, right? Just like showing up in the delivery room, right? So if I don't like to do public speaking, my mom wasn't really happy at the birth, right? And like just what you said, I bet your mom would say the same thing. You know, I don't like this, but I'm going to do it. You know, kind of like we're going to get through this birth. And so people will take on those attitudes. Any moment of truth, being pulled over by the cops. If you get over terrified by that, your mom was scared at your birth. If you have a big exam coming up and you're nervous about that, your mom was nervous at your birth. So just notice that when people have a fear of death, you know, unless a person has actually died, they cannot actually have a fear of death because they haven't done it. So how could you know? So the only thing we can be afraid of is our idea about it. And the idea of death is how our mother felt at our birth. That's how we form our idea of what death is like. So if our mom got through the birth process just great, we're not all that worried about death, right? It doesn't run our lives. But if our mom was scared or almost died during the birth or some crisis happened, the baby almost died, something like that, then we'll have a terrible fear of death. We think that's what it is. But those feelings can be handed back to mom. Hey, mom, thanks for the gift of life. And now I leave all your feelings of fear and anxiety with you. You know, please bless me when I see reality as it is and stop trying to fix your fears. So those are the things that can happen at birth. I'll tell you a quick story, you know. I'm on the anniversary of this as well. So I recently flew to California for a conference, and in the San Jose airport, this was the first time that I had to not only stand in that thing, you know, and, you know, like in this arrest posture, like I'm being arrested and this thing's going around. I had to empty the supplements out of my pocket, you know, and they're not metal or anything, you know, and this guy's going, they pick up everything, you know, so I have, you know, so I was, you know, I didn't know what to do. I'm just standing there like, this had never happened before. And there's this big long line of people. So I backed out of the line and I just started letting people go by, and I'm just like stunned. And they were asking me to do something simple, like reach in your pocket, take this out. You know? Yeah. I mean, it's actually really simple, as AJ would say. And yet I'm just like paralyzed, you know, that I can't get this done. Okay. So I haven't worked on my timeline for a while, but here I am, 69 in almost 6 months. When I was 23 and almost 2 months, you can see where that's a cycle. 23 and 2, 46 and 4, 69 and 6. The same things replay. All right. At 23 and 2, this unfortunate circumstance happened where people thought I was going to hijack an airplane at Love Field. And when I was in this posture, it wasn't because I was in an X-ray machine. It was because I was wrapped in chains, and women were screaming and getting their babies away from me, and these federal agents were like, you know, going crazy. Yeah. And so my brain, you know, apparently there were some of those feelings I had not reconciled, Dennis, you know. And so when they started telling me these things and getting me to do this, it was like I started replaying that event, and I just stood there like, okay, I've been arrested. I was waiting for someone to take me away. I couldn't walk anymore, you know. And so it was nice to be able to look back on that and go, a timeline replay, you know. It wasn't real. I'm not defective, You know, my brain was doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Keep coming back, you know, until we get everything reconciled. So I said nice things, and I'll use their names, you know, because they're probably deceased now. I said nice things about Bud Sabell, and may Bud Sabell and his family be blessed, and I mean that sincerely. And Jim Smith and his family, I mean that sincerely. And at the time, it was scary, you know. So, isn't that funny? So that's one of the time things. Whatever happens to you, like at 8 years old, if it's not reconciled, it's coming back at 16, 24, 32. It's going to keep coming back, and it's especially strong on doubles. So 8, 16, 32, 64. The doubles are the strongest, okay? So when we have a little timeline, we can kind of anticipate, if we're paying attention, you know, I'm going to go fly. Oh, look, it's the anniversary of being arrested for hijacking.
Let's see what happens.
It's funny in a way, isn't it? Okay, all right. So, this is sort of me and my little family thing that I was writing up. I had atrial fibrillation in addition to alcoholism, which I already talked about. So, I get an episode of atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation's a noun. And y'all know by now that we don't do nouns, you know, and I didn't know that then. And so atrial fibrillation is where the top parts of the heart, the little pacemaker, did you know that girls set the pace for the heart? Did you know that? The atria, the top part of the heart where the pacemaker is the feminine part of the heart because it receives blood that's coming back from the lungs and the body. The woman sets the pace for life. Okay? The pacemaker is in the feminine part of the heart. And then that goes down to this midpoint where she meets the man of her dreams. And then, you know, the ventricles contract. Ventricles are male because they eject. Okay? So, the little pacemaker, it starts moving around. And then it finally gets to where a whole bunch of little pacemakers are running around. And there's no connection with the male part. This top part is just kind of quivering. And the bottom part just beats every now and then. And where's my woman, right? Like Pleasantville. Honey, I'm home. Where's my dinner? And can't figure out what's going on here. So I tried taking the medicines. I got off all the caffeine. Nothing. Still in atrial fibrillation. So I went to see a friend, and she didn't know anything about this really cognitively. She's not a doctor or nurse or anything. But she just says, I have this idea. You want to try it? I said, sure. She said, imagine your masculine self, and just imagine it. So I ended up masculine self, feminine self, and then she did this little thing like, okay, like, see if they'll move closer to each other. Okay, closer and closer and closer. This took like 20 or 30 minutes. And then she said, see if they'll turn and take a peek at each other, you know. And as soon as the masculine and feminine looked at each other, I went into sinus rhythm instantly. The thing I want to tell you about timelines is when I went back and looked at this a couple of years later, that happened on the anniversary of my physical conception, when the masculine and the feminine met and turned into my body. I had no idea. The heart was talking about something. It was telling a story, and there are several stories in the family it was telling. In addition to being about my personal conception, the atrial fibrillation is often a story about a woman who cannot be captured by a male because it's dangerous. When my father was in the womb, his grandparents, who lived right there with him, were going through a violent alcoholic divorce. They had to hide from him during that period of time. They could not be captured by him. That's one of the meanings of atrial fibrillation. the woman's going to run around to all these different places and refuse to be connected with the male. Once that changes, everything goes back to the way it is designed to be. The other one is somebody in the family lineage is bleeding to death, which typically we ask about childbirth traumas and about battlefield traumas. And now that we say that one, probably the biggest thing, the biggest trauma area that we have in this culture is being the descendant of military personnel. If you've listened to any of Ed Tick's stuff, there are descendants of people in battles who never were there and have never heard the story that can recount exact details of what happened on the battlefield the day that their ancestor's comrade was killed. It looks like it's inherited in some way as an entire image. And this will go for 3 to 4 generations at least. That is the strongest entanglement that a person can be in. So I always ask if there are military personnel in the family, especially during a time of war. The loyalty to a comrade is beyond that of a man and a wife, or a man and his children. So that's a... So the first family constellation I was in where I saw that was a man with 3 children. They looked happy, like about 40 years old, but he had made several suicide attempts. He would have these dips into depression and try to take his own life. When the family constellation was set up, people were put in as representatives for the deceased comrades. And this man is standing there. He's standing with his wife and his kids, but as soon as the deceased comrades were there, he just totally abandoned them and walked over to join the deceased comrades. And as he walked over there, they all put their hand up and they said, "This is not your place. You disrespect us if you come here." And when you're in that environment, you can feel it. It's not a flippant kind of a thing. It's very deep. And so they pushed him away and said, "Your place is with your family. It's not here with us." The dynamic is his father's heart went into the grave with his comrades. That's where his father's main love will always be until he clears that. If I'm a child, I want to be in the line of my father's love, and I will do anything to get there. So if it means I have to die, like one of the comrades, to be in the line of his love, that's what I'm going to do. And that was his program. Once he saw that, he came back alive, embraced his family. But that was his movement in his life, what was motivating him. Any form of depression, anxiety, all those things that are listed as PTSD, one of the things that's really useful is to see that that's generational and not make the person think that this is about you. Even combat soldiers, if they have ancestors who are also combat soldiers, there's a generational piece for them, even though they've seen horrible things personally. They also have the family overlay. So that's a big piece as well. Who wants to draw timelines?
I know the answer to this question.
Yes.
Does the military today, do they train soldiers when they come back under these circumstances?
Yeah, he's asking about what happens when soldiers come back under these circumstances. And so if you Google Ed Tick, he has a group, I think it's called the Warrior's Way, and his work is about honoring these men as warriors. In fact, he says there is a type of human, which I think it's a program. Some people are programmed to be warriors. He pointed out that in the Las Vegas shootings, those were videoed.
Yes.
There were some people that ran toward the shooter instinctively. Those are the warriors. People who are not trying to get away. They are people who are willing to give their life to stop the violence.
Same thing with the World Trade
And I had never heard that before. And so what he does is get his groups together and they honor and they do ceremonies around the fact that you were born a warrior. Let's honor that. And he gets recovery with that. He also takes people back to Vietnam and they get to sit there and play dominoes or whatever with the little grandkids of the, you know, the people that they were at war with. And it's very healing for them. A lot of weeping and crying, but a lot of gratitude. Because the people there, interestingly, don't hold anything against the veteran. That's the other piece, and this has been observed even back with the Navajo. The Navajo had two groups of warriors. One group stayed in the village there and defended the village in case someone attacked. The other group went out and looted and pillaged and did whatever they did to get their stuff. The descendants of this group that went out had PTSD. The descendants of people who killed in defense of the village did not have PTSD. And that's been observed in the family constellations as well. If I am defending my territory, my children and grandchildren will not get PTSD. But if I travel to another country, another place, and take someone else's life or stuff, my kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews will carry that. And they will do what they can to atone for it. And not even know that that's why they feel the way they feel. They'll be told they have a noun called depression. And there's no such thing as that. The brain is trying to be an answer for the pain that happened before. So yes, but that's a small portion, AJ. It looks like most of the people don't get the benefit of that.
I would suggest that the Nimitz Museum is a healing.
Yes. He's talking about how the Nimitz Museum here is healing. It was very healing for my father when I walked through the Nimitz Museum with him. And my uncle, who was actually at Pearl Harbor, it was healing for him to go through and see that. So many ways to heal that. And the way that doesn't heal is the soldier's instinct. If I'm a warrior, my instinct is to not share with those I'm protecting because I think I'm protecting them by not sharing. I don't even want them to hear about the trauma. But that's the thing that makes it continue. That's the part where being a warrior all the way through, that's the dark side of being a warrior. There comes a time to not be protective and to tell people the truth about what I've seen and felt. And that helps with the healing. And yes, yeah.
So, you know, the warrior gene,
Mm-hmm.
is that like connected to this?
So, you know, when people talk about, we were joking earlier in lunch, you know, like when we say things are genetic, you know, genetic is like a noun. This is genetic, this is DNA, and that's a noun. And what happens is these little trauma proteins actually hook on and hold on to the DNA. They're holding. Why is my brain allowing those to keep holding? Do as many verbs as you can. And what would I need to do to help my brain release those? Yes, because I've watched people heal from incurable things that they were told were genetic, and they didn't do anything but a ritual. Well, I mean, that didn't change their parents. They still had the same two parents, the same four grandparents. Their DNA didn't change. The expression of it did. So just because I have a gene doesn't mean it has to express. And it looks like we're in charge of how it expresses, much more so than we ever thought. Yeah, it looks like we have way more control over that. And the thing that keeps us from doing that, we go back to our little picture there. If I'm in the womb, in my infancy, or like me at birth, and I die at birth and mom is scared, I've got to go around saving people. But I have to. My program tells me the only thing that's going to make your mother happy, the only thing that's going to keep you as a loyal member of this family is if you keep saving people. If you ever stop saving people, you are not your mother's son anymore. Right? That's totally unconscious. But whenever we watch ourselves not grow, that's what's going on. It's a loyalty to an old pattern. Let's pat ourselves on the back and say, good to be loyal. I'm grateful for the people I came from. Yeah. And we have sentences now for that. They're releasing sentences. We'll get you some copies of that. But it's like whatever's in my innocently inherited programming that's keeping me stuck here, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And we just say that until that releases. There can be a release with that. Y'all doing okay? Is everybody doing okay? Anybody need to stretch or have a break? We've been here a long time, so.
You know what's interesting is so much of what you're saying is developed in the woman.
Yes, it's developed when we're in the womb and during the infancy. So during that 1927 flood, my mom's older brother was 10 months old. So if you read about the flood of 27, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. Not only were there relatives at risk, not only was there misuse of power to blow up the levees, but black people were held at gunpoint and forced to try to shore up the levees, and they were washed away to their death, okay? So there was this huge racial thing going on as well. So he's got to be an answer for that. This one right here, he was one of the few lawyers in Beaumont at that time who would stand up for people regardless of their race. And his first big case, it was a multi-million-dollar case, was about pollution in a river. Now, when that Mississippi came down like that, it was full of sewage. It poisoned everybody and everything. So he found out from my father, it was my father's factory or plant that was polluting the river. And they just happened to be talking at dinner one night, and my dad was complaining that he had designed this thing that would recycle all the pollution so it didn't have to go in the river. But it didn't make enough money for the company, so they rejected it. Well, he didn't know that Uncle Bill had just gotten a client, a little kid with leukemia, dying of leukemia. He had had an epidemiologist come in, and there was 55 times more leukemia downstream from that plant than anywhere else in the country. When the judge heard that there was a way to remove the pollution and the company didn't do it, they got a $6 million settlement, which, like in 1955, that was a big deal. And so that was his first big case, and he was driven to it because that was his purpose, to save his relatives from pollution, from that Mississippi flood that happened in his programming period, to save black people from discrimination, to prevent misuse of power. He was one who stood up to power. You're not blowing up the levees and flooding out the poor people. Not without me saying something about it. Right? He was programmed that way. And as long as a program works, I say stay with it. It's when the program doesn't let me go find that gazelle with the special horns on the left side of the, and it's breaking my heart. That's when we want to change that program. You can change it.
Back off what AJ was saying, it is a lot the mom, but in the womb, if maybe the mom wants you, but the dad doesn't, you're still going to get those feelings.
Absolutely. So yes, it comes through mom, and it's how mom sees dad. Okay, so just some overviews that you would get from recall healing classes if you decided to go. The basis of autoimmune, which I carry celiac, my whole family has for 4 generations. I didn't know it till I was 57 years old. Had gluten and dairy with every meal for 57 years, you know. And yeah, it didn't work out so well. I would work out, and my muscles stayed the same, you know. What's going on here? How come I can eat a whole pizza and a pitcher of beer and don't gain an ounce, you know? Because I'm not digesting it. That's what it is. So autoimmune, even though the diet is the trigger, remember, food is our parents are our first source of food. So whenever we eat, we subconsciously remember our parents and how well they nurtured us. So the basis of autoimmune is conditional love between the parents. So if during the pregnancy in the first year of life, the parents say, one of them says to the other one, I will stay with you if. I'm only going to stay with you through this if. The child will digest the part of their body, they will actually destroy it, the part of the body that represents what would ruin that condition. They're going to do everything they can up to the point of death to keep the parents together, to never let that condition arise. So whatever part of their body, so let me give you an example. Somebody's got adrenal failure, right? Okay, adrenal is about the conflict of direction. You probably knew this, that sheep, at the end of the day, the elders of the sheep stand and they face a certain way and they send out a sonar beam, like elephants do, and it calls the other sheep back in so they don't get eaten at night by themselves. But if the sheep go too far away, they can't pick up the sonar. The brain and the adrenal glands know that. So if a sheep starts to wander too far, the brain will shut the adrenal glands down so there's no energy to go too far. Right? And the sheep will just fall down in fatigue. They'll have fatigue. And then, you know, they hear the call, oh, the direction is back this way. Oh, I've got a direction. My brain turns my adrenals back on when I'm going the right direction, right? And it goes back. So that's how it works. So a conflict of direction, like the adrenals, what if one of my parents wants to leave? This person is not who I thought they were. Now that I'm pregnant, this person's not, this is not the direction for me, right? The kid's adrenals will carry that for the parent. I will destroy my desire to go my own direction if that will keep you two together. So we just look at whatever body part is being attacked, like the lady with the arthritis and signing things. I will destroy these joints if signing that form is going to split my parents. Can you see that? Yeah, that's how that works. So with autoimmune, there's always a threat of the parents splitting, and the child sacrifices their body in some symbolic way to keep the parents together.
Didn't work because my parents still got it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and when the parents get a divorce, you know, you can go several ways with that, but one way that people suffer with is they believe the program when it tells them they failed at their purpose. The parents split anyway. I'm a failure. And if that voice is playing, you know, we'll know it because the person doesn't succeed anywhere. And so if that's happening, we go back and look at this dynamic and return it to the people and places that it belongs with. And let me just tell you this. I've stood in family constellations. I'm going to stand up again here. I've stood in family constellations for the perpetrator grandfather in a family, and the descendants come and confront me with what I have done in that family that hurt the family. And in the ceremony, they will take some object that represents the guilt of that, and those descendants will hand it back to me so that they're not carrying the consequences of my actions anymore. and then they turn and they go into their own life. If you ever get a chance to be in a constellation and stand in that position, you will realize it's the best feeling you'll ever have in your life, is to hold something that belongs to me, that was burdening my descendants, to watch them get free of that. So when you think about handing something back to your parents or grandparents, it is not a burden. The program will say it's a burden. It's not true. If you actually physically stand in that place, you will feel what I'm talking about. It is so loving, right? Nobody wants their kids to carry their stuff. And you get to feel that in your body, you know? So don't be shy about handing things back to mom and dad and grandpa and grandma. How you doing there?
I heard all this 15.
In those situations, do you have people write letters or?
Yes, you can write letters. So in journaling, you know, there was a period of time, I still do it, when I have my little M-Wave on, and I'll sit down and start out, "Dear Mom," and if it stays red, that's not the day to write a letter to Mom. "Dear Dad," still red. One day it was "Dear Barney." Barney was our dog. And it starts pinging green. And wasn't actually a welcome thing. I was mean to Barney, you know, and I had horrible guilt about it. And so I'm sitting by the creek and I write, "Dear Barney," I'm in high coherence, and I cannot find a single sentence coming from the heart. I mean, nothing. The monitor's not buying it. My body's not buying it. I'm trying all the sweet spiritual things I can say, and none of it's working. And then finally, after just sitting for a while, this sentence came. And it was like this. "In memory of you, I am kind to animals." And this thing my heart just opened. And I cried, and my body felt it. And me and Barney were good. You know, I could almost see Barney on the other side going, "Finally got it." You know? So, yeah, if y'all get a phone number or something for me and you have questions, because it's kind of been a sort of a scattery kind of a day, a lot of sharing, and so if you have questions or something or wanted to know something practical, just give me a call or a text. And
Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, this
Yeah.
is, it only,
Maybe a couple of things though, like.
Yes.
Because I know when I first, you remember when you talked about recall healing in San Antonio many years ago?
Yes.
And I got into it, and I feel like they're all getting it a lot faster than it's
I know. Other people get it.
I think I was overthinking too about
Yes.
diseases and I was undoing a lot of my programs for medical school.
Yes.
But, like, do you find that it's okay for people to, like, get those books and work on some of this alone?
Yeah.
Or, sometimes
Yeah, I would.
mind alone is not.
It's not a good neighborhood, right? The mind. I'm alone with my brain in this neighborhood. Oh, no. Yeah. So, yeah, and Dr. O'Leary's talking about how it's more challenging, I think, to be a doctor and try to read this than just somebody picking it up, because it's logical and simple. It's like, well, why wouldn't it be this way, And we're all educated the opposite direction. And so, yes, if people, and I like for people to either have an M-wave or another person, because one of the ways the brain protects me is to make sure I don't see my own program. It has to hide it from me. The reason it's buried in the subconscious is a good reason. I may not know what it is, but it is Pandora's box on the lower part of that iceberg. You don't want to go in there alone. Right? Don't do it. And that's why we have relationships. Because if you lived at my house for about a week, you could read the bottom of my iceberg, things that I can't see. And you could go, Rich, you do this all the time. And I would go, I can't believe you saw that. Get out of this house, Yeah, that's how the programming works. So we all have a blind spot for our own programming, but children and spouses are great for being able to see the bottoms of our icebergs and what our subconscious beliefs are. And subconscious beliefs are what run the body. So anytime something pops up, if we can just question the subconscious belief, like a Byron Katie form, Byron Katie worksheet, question the subconscious belief and it will automatically release. So, thework.com, Cody's got it on his arm, the book Loving What Is there, and his tattoo there on his forearm. So a Byron Katie worksheet, she has two of them. The first one is called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And so if you're really miffed at your spouse or your kid because they saw part of your program that you didn't want them to see, and it's damaged your egoic self, judge them. How dare you say that to me? And there's questions on there like, what does this person need to do in order for me to be happy? Well, you just need to stop acting like this and this and that. What do you think of this person? I think they are a selfish, self-centered, unable to see my needs, and just, really judge it. And then there's free facilitators online, and they'll go through the process with you. And just going through that process, that whole subconscious belief changes. It's pretty amazing. So.
My comment is on that because I was kind of thinking about, I don't want to say rules because we don't like that word.
Yeah.
Some of the things we want to make sure we're not doing. I did that form, and you kind of had mentioned it one time about that being something that you do, and so I did it, and it tamed me for 2 days. I was in a very ill state. It made me go back to my ill state. I think you told me after that, yeah, that was probably something that you shouldn't have done on your own. Or was it just
Okay, so when we went back, now this is how we'll do. Our program is very subtle, and it will try to get us to help ourselves in ways that doesn't work. The program does not want to change. It does not want to be changed, right? So, okay, if we have a Byron Katie worksheet, what will the programming voice say on when to do this so that it has the best chance of not working? Because I have a vested loyalty in keeping this belief, right? So the little voice will say, wait till you're really happy and do it then. So the big rule is we don't do any of this when we're happy. It's only when we feel bad or we're sick. If you're happy and you sit down and do one of these things, it will tank you. It will tank you. Like you just opened the big Pandora's box on a day when you were enjoying yourself. And it's not going to feel good. Remember, healing is what hurts. You'll heal something, and it's going to feel really, really bad. So just so you know.
It helps to be able to recognize that.
Yes, it does. It does, to know that there's a little voice. So here's one of the exercises we did. I mean, if y'all want to play for just a second, and we'll do this little exercise that someone showed me. Whoever wants to sit in this chair can get the chair. And, you don't know what's going to happen, do you? It could be anything here. So we're going to do a little experiment here. And this is about looking at the programming versus reality. Okay. You're gonna get the chair. Okay. Who wants to be the good voice that's telling Dr. O'Leary the radiant being that she is? Who wants to be that? The real true self. The true self. You're going to stand over her right shoulder here. Okay? And yes. Yeah. So you're the one there. And this can be kind of fun if you hang on to one of these. So put one of these on your earlobe, and and you can hold this in your hand, and you can maybe even hold it where people can see it. Okay, and who wants to be the voice of judgment?
You know you're jumping in there.
Yeah, so we need somebody who's going to be the voice of judgment, that little voice that tells everybody, you know, that they're less than all the time. Huh? That little voice. Yeah, it's tough having her do it. You know, this may be too tough for everybody, you know, because you're going to slip something in their next IV. And
We just met, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
yes. Yeah, good. So if you can just clip that on an earlobe there, and yeah, see if it'll.
Is that, do I need to take an earring off?
We'll see. We'll see if it gets a nice pulse, and so we'll learn something about them as well, and in their little role as this. Yeah, good. It looks like it's going to get your pulse there. Okay. Okay, and it'll have a little sound that's going to make a little color there. You can show the color to the group there so they can see what color it is. Okay, so just rub your earlobe and we'll start it over again and see if we get good circulation in here. And I'll get the other. Some of these are not as fresh as the other ones, so let me get. I know. Some of them are old. All right, so let's try this one here, and let's see what happens here. Okay, good. Yeah, perfect. We want to see that, and we want to get your notes. And here we go. So let's get your notes here. And get you to, and let me see if I can get another one to work for her, because hers isn't working. So I'm going to try your. So if you'll just give me a thumb, we're going to try your thumb since your ear doesn't want to talk to us. Yeah, it's just kind of sitting there. Yeah. Okay. But yes, sometimes we just don't. Yeah, and sometimes once you get up here, like, you push something funny? Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay. We won't tell her what's actually going to happen. She might leave.
Reset, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at you, right in your heart there. So when it's green like that, you're going right into your heart. Yeah, good. And so we always watch out for people who are about to be the voice of judgment, and they like it. Okay, so let's get this one here, and let's see if this one will work on your thumb. And you can be the angelic voice. You can take this one off. Okay. And so now if you would get like a blank page here, and we're just going to ask you to draw a nice landscape. And I want you to comment as you watch her do this. You're going to be the voice that tells her wonderful things, and you're going to be the one that's going to judge. And just
They're gonna laugh at you. You can't do anything right. That flower's different. What's wrong with you? Why are you so slow? Everybody else can do this. Why can't you? It's really blue.
Your mountains have like amazing snow.
It doesn't snow that high up. There's no snow in those mountains. There is too. Now you're talking. That's good.
You draw like Claire.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we can. Yes.
You just thought you had some confidence.
Yes. So thank y'all for doing this. Yeah. So what?
You were way too good at it. I like the line.
She didn't like it. No, I didn't like what she was saying, but I couldn't combat it.
So what? Happy with the line.
Yeah. So
I didn't even pay attention to lockdown.
I know y'all are having fun. It was good for everybody, huh? Yeah, because that's what's going on with all of us. You know, we have the voice that's talking about reality, that we are, radiant divine beings of light in all of our variations and uniqueness. And then there's that program voice, And isn't it funny how some of them are real zingers, right? How was that for you when you...
I heard her way better.
heard the voice of judgment way better?
Affirmations on the other side, they didn't seem to be near as convincing.
Would the line fade it in, Rich?
So what I was looking for with them was whenever a person's turning in, doing the blue and green, their heart is really into what they're doing. We have one lady who is very, very angry, and whenever we do this exercise, her heart stays open the whole time that she's criticizing the person in the chair. She's getting self-conscious about it because she can't make the thing go into her heart any other way except to criticize. So we at least make a game out of it, So,
And yours was red because you weren't.
I felt terrible.
Yeah.
yeah, you felt terrible being that voice. Yeah.
But that's the voice that's in all of us.
And it's a program voice that's designed to help us stay belonging in our family. And so in order to belong to my family, I need to think this about myself. That's what the little voice is always saying, right? If I don't see myself this way, I lose my belonging in my family. And so that's why we do the ceremonies, to get permission from the family. Will you still love me and bless me as your daughter or granddaughter if I see myself as the being that I truly am?
That's powerful.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to come out and share today.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming.
A little springtime chat here.
Yeah. How do we get one of these end things?
I brought a few. My partner has some, and you can order them from Institute of Heart Math. Sometimes they're on Amazon. They usually go on sale at Christmas and Valentine's Day. With shipping, they're like $200. They'll hook up to your computer. You can play video games with your coherence, or you can use them portably. And if you work with people, it's pretty interesting to, like if you're doing a massage or doing some energy work or something, if you put it on, you can put it on where there's no tone, so that only you can see when somebody is in coherence with their heart. And when a person is talking, and you can see that, and they say something like, my child did this, and you see that color change, you know that's a big issue. And if you can facilitate them speaking about that, I mean, most of y'all would feel that in your bodies.
There are some people that dissociate.
Yeah, I like having the little monitor there to help. So, yeah. So, wonderful to meet all of y'all. Maybe we can have another chat again. And you may see yourself as a star on YouTube, being the voice of judgment. Yeah.